Hello, welcome to Blind Freedom, a channel dedicated to breaking the barriers of blindness to establish freedom and independence. I'm Terry, I'm your host. I'm legally blind. I have a little bit of peripheral vision, but not very much, and I use a cane to get around. The channel has three missions. The first is to share tips, tools, and techniques that work. There's a lot of things that don't work or that promise to work but don't. And I really want to shortcut it for a lot of people who are trying to find new things and ways to do things to avoid the frustration. The second part of my mission is to share my experience with breaking through the barriers of my blindness and strategies that I've used to obtain independence. Hopefully, that'll encourage other people. Maybe I'll get some hints. And then the third mission that I have is to share what it's like being blind with people who are sighted, who might know someone who has vision problems and is motivated to learn more about what they go through on a daily basis. Welcome to my podcast. Today's podcast is titled Going to Church. Um, and it could be any other public meeting event besides church. But church is the one that I chose on my path in recovery from my blindness. It's a place that I had belonged to before I lost all of my vision. So I had some familiarity. But it's a totally new experience once I had lost my vision, and it was like starting from scratch. About a little over a year ago, I spoke to my caseworker at the Mass Commission for the Blind, who helps me a lot. And I told them that I wanted to go to church, and not just to go to church, but I wanted to be able to participate in church. And that means to be able to somehow follow along with the bulletin that's given out, which is like a written um, um, summary of what's going to happen during the service, many times with things that have to be said or repeated or um, um, citations to places of other references of visual material. And I was first told that, well, I'd probably have to learn Braille. Well, I'm kind of an old guy. I'm kind of in a hurry. Braille takes probably a couple of years to get anywhere near. And as far as I can tell, even if I got really good at it, I'd never be able to like keep up with singing a song and a hymn at church by using it. But maybe that's all negative thinking on my part. In any rate, that made me go in a different direction because learning Braille was not something that I have done and I'm willing to try, but um, we'll have to see what happens with that in another podcast. The most immediate thing that I could come up with um, to master the written bulletin issue was trying to use some combination of text on a screen with a screen reader. This is all I had learned so far with my computer, and I was beginning to learn it with my iPad, my phone. They're very similar, and so that's where my efforts went. In assistance with the church administrator, who's been very kind to me in my efforts, um, she would provide me with a PDF file of the bulletin of the week, the Friday before the Sunday service. What it ended up is that I had to open that file into a Word document where I would then edit it and do spacing and texting so that what my text reader would read what I wanted to and stop reading it and not just continuously read it, figure out what format to save it in. Word documents aren't very great for text readers, um, and so on and so on. I finally mastered that, and that worked really well. And then the next part of the technology project was how to do hymns. And I'll talk about that a little bit later because I want to talk a little bit more about the experience. I want to say that going to a large public event is quite a challenging task for someone who has low vision or blindness. Um, as always, with any effort that we make, I think it requires advanced preparation, a great deal of it. I think you want to know where you're going and try to understand what you'll be required to do for entering and exiting, and how you're going to find a seat, and all sorts of things like that along the way, transportation issues. And then once you get there, it's like you usually have to get handed a piece of written material. It's an agenda for the meeting, a bulletin in my case at the church meeting. And then you're seated. And if you're lucky, you get escorted to a nice seat. I think the nice thing about a church is it's regularly set out. It's a Protestant church that I go to, but they're very commonly formatted where their pews are facing forward and their aisles, and the speaker is usually elevated up in front. Um, and it's easy to find a place to sit. Um, and you don't really have to participate at all. Just being there is really great, because a lot of times otherwise you'd be isolated or at home watching on a live feed, perhaps. It's much better being there in person. You still have to deal with the fact that you really can't interact very well with people, can't see anybody, and they really don't know you and how to interact with you, at least at first. Um, I have found that um, a church in particular has been a very supportive and safe place to try out blindness strategies. They're very tolerant about me using my technology during a service. I'm not very noisy, but it's obvious that I'm doing something. A lot of people like to watch me. But it's not something that sticks out a lot because in my church, there's a lot of um, hearing devices that are passed out by the church each service and worn like headsets by a number of people in the congregation. So I'm not alone by any means. It's also a great place to practice social skills of all sorts. Um, 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week. It's a great therapy experience and opportunity, and I really encourage you to get up and do that. No matter what your beliefs are, just doing that will be something that's helpful to you. Has been for me. I want to say that a lot of what I went through fast about technology for reading the bulletins, I went through fast for a purpose. One, because I wanted to let you know of all the things that I went through to finally get to something that worked. But then something really amazing happened in the last month. It's part of a artificial intelligence in an application called SeeingAI, which is produced by Microsoft for the blindness community. It's an awesome app. If you haven't seen my podcast on it, it's titled "Reading It." Please look at it. I went in depth about what a great application that it is. With Seeing AI, the bulletin or the agenda at the public meeting that's handed to you, um, we can really very quickly just take a picture of it with Seeing AI, and then the artificial intelligence goes to work and scans it for text. It keeps it all in the formatted style, and so then it presents it on a screen as text, which you can use with VoiceOver to find any line and follow along in any way that you need to. It's really easy, and it avoids all of the preparation time and efforts that I had gone through previous to this being introduced on the market. Hooray! Hallelujah. Now, the other part of this project is being able to sing. In a Protestant church, there are usually 3 hymns in a service. Um, hymns are usually in a hymnal. which has musical notes and scores along with verse type written material, words. Again, with the help of the church secretary, the written words were provided to me. And then I had to try to put them into short enough phrases so that my voiceover, as I stroked along, would speak to me the next phrase that's going to be sung. I could sing that while I was stroking it and listening to the next phrase that was going to follow after that. It's kind of a rhythm that you kind of get going. It's based on the music and the words and the technology. And I was getting pretty good at it. Probably about 80% of the time I could sing and keep up. Most of my errors at that point were I would touch the screen in a different area, which when you're using a voice reader then distracts it, takes it up to somewhere else. I do use an iPad for services just because it's a much bigger screen than my iPhone screen. Both will work. Unfortunately, the church has recently decided to get a new hymnal, and this means there's all new words and new rhythms to the music that's in the hymnal. And I'm on pause right now while the congregation is learning how to sing it. And then once they get it, I'll be able to figure out how to fit in. Well, I really enjoyed talking to you about my experience of going to church or any public event. I hope it's been helpful to you in learning new technologies that you can use. It's going to be a great place to practice your orientation and mobility skills and your social skills. Um, for me, it's a personal experience that is really fulfilling, and I really enjoy doing it for all sorts of reasons. And I encourage you to and get up and get out and spend an hour a week there. It's worth it. And if you're a sighted person, I hope it's helped you understand a little bit more about what it's like for us in our experience in your world and ways that you can help us out. I hope that you will listen to more podcasts in the future and check out ones from the past if you're new. Please visit my website. It's blindfreedom.net. See you in the future. Bye.